Hey everybody, and welcome to a Chairman of the Board Top 10 list. Today I'll be talking about my favourite roll and write style games, or flip and write style games. So I'm going to assume that you know what that means and get straight on with the list as soon as I finish mentioning the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer when it comes to purchasing board games here in the UK. And if you use my link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. At number 10, I have Hadrians Wall, which is by far the grandest flip and write style game that I've ever played. This is definitely an involved game as you're trying to build up these fortifications, trying to fight off these invaders, climb a bunch of different tracks and dive into a bunch of mini games to build up your engine and collect more meeples to string more actions together. So this is definitely one of those games where you can start a round off with quite a little. But by the time you're done, you're surprised about how much you can achieve because one thing will unlock another thing, which will unlock another thing, and so on. And this game actually has physical resources with it. So you are actually collecting meeples, you're collecting, your stone and things, which is definitely a difference between this and a lot of the other ones. So this is definitely on the kind of cusp of the comfort zone that I'm willing to dive into, but the gameplay is solid and it goes to show how much potential you can achieve with, with a simple flip and write style game. So that is Hadrian's Wall at number 10. At number 9, I have Hex Roller, which is certainly a more traditional roll and write style game. So in this one, you are rolling a big cluster of dice, then you're going to draft one of the pip values, or at least one pool of those pip values, and then add them onto your player sheet, only connecting the same number to the same number that are already on the sheets. Now what you're trying to do is you're trying to fill up certain portions of your player sheet with the same number, because if you fill up a section, then the most numerous number appearing in that section will be points to you. But at the same time, you are trying to connect certain points to certain points on your player sheet by connecting a continuous line of that number. So sometimes doing one thing can hurt the other thing, and I like the way that you are rewarded by diversifying in this game, because normally you might think drafting all the high numbers will be great because I can get 8 points for each section I fill up. But getting the lower numbers is great because you actually get points on the runs you make of all the different numbers you've drafted as well. Definitely a bare bones game, no frills with this one, but it works for what it is, and sometimes less is more, and that's why I like Hex Roller. At number 8, I have Fleet the Dice game. So in this one, you are essentially trying to fill up your fishing vessels with as much fish as possible, because when it comes to a scoring phase, you're going to score points equal to the amount of fish that you've harvested. But you're going to take all your actions by drafting these bespoke dice, which will let you climb a bunch of tracks. It'll let you unlock abilities as you go, and really diversify what you can do throughout the game. So I actually think this game flows really nicely. It has a good kind of arc to it as you're always getting more and more fish. You're trying not to waste any overspill of the fish you're getting by investing in new vessels. It's just a really cool game how everything comes together. And you're going to need to kind of switch on your thinking cap with this one, because it's not a sit back and relax style game. It is a bit more complex than your average roll and write, but it's definitely worth the effort and I like it a lot. So that is Fleet the Dice game at number 8. At number 7, I have That's Pretty Clever. Now for me, it's pretty hard to deny that this game did bring the roll and write genre to the forefront of the hobby. And I think that is because it really did focus on that idea of chaining actions together and getting those domino effect combos. And this game does that probably better than any other game on the list. So this game is another dice drafter, but you've got to be quite careful about how you draft these dice, because if you go straight for the high ones, you might have to sacrifice a bunch of the lower ones for future rolls, or the colours for future rolls. And as with a lot of roll and write style games, you're trying to build numbers up in order, you're trying to create a grid of numbers to get benefits. It's all about what you're going to get as a reward for picking those dice. And I also like the fact that you are rewarded for focusing on the same thing, because you're going to snowball, but also you are rewarded by diversifying by collecting these fox heads, which will let you score your lowest category again. This game really is a kind of blueprint to how to do a good roll and write game, and the fact that it's got like 4 versions now goes to show that there is mileage in this design. So really impressed with this one. I think it's probably my favourite solo game of all time. That's Pretty Clever. At number 6, I have Splitter, which is a quirky little game as you are rolling a pair of standard D6 dice and then writing those numbers somewhere on your player sheet. But the twist on this game is that in the middle of your player sheet, you have this dotted line, which effectively acts like a mirror. So if you were to write one of the numbers, say, in the middle of this side of the grid, then you have to write the other number in the exact space on the other side of the grid. And what you're trying to do is you are trying to create perfect sets of numbers equal to the pip value. So as an example, you want all the 1s to be on their own, you want all the 2s to be in pairs, you want all the 3s to be in trios. and so on. And as the grid gets more and more filled up with numbers, it's quite difficult to make those perfect pairings or perfect sets, because inevitably they're going to start bleeding on each other and you're going to go above or below those limits, and it's quite a difficult thing to overcome. Now, I understand that this might not be everybody's cup of tea because there's not much mitigation tools, but I think I'm happy with this game being as it is because it is so light, and it's one of those games that's so quick and easy to play that I can just roll with the punches and enjoy the process. But it's a really nice game. I think it's really underrated. That is Splitter at number 6. At number 5, I have Next Station London. So in this flip and right style game, you are creating 4 distinct underground railway networks, each represented by a different coloured pen or pencil. And as the game works, you're going to be flipping over these cards, which are going to show which station you are next going to connect to. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to encroach on as many different grid references as you can, but somewhat focus on one, because those 2 different criteria are going to get multiplied with each other. You're also trying to cross the River Thames and also trying to use the same station on as many different networks as you can. And that can become quite difficult as the game develops, because more and more of the game space is going to get taken up and you cannot cross one network through the other. So it definitely does become quite restrictive. But I really like this one. It has some good decisions and it's just a good experience. So that is Next Station London at number 5. At number 4, I have Rustling Leaves. So in this roll and write game, each player sheet is going to consist of a bunch of different symbols, each of which score in different ways. Some might simply say the more you tick off, the more points you'll get. Some might only score if you tick them off in pairs. Some might say they'll score if you don't tick them off at all. And the way the game works is that you are going to be rolling a pair of dice, and the numbers of those dice is going to determine the kind of square value or a grid value that you have to draw on your player sheet. So if you say rolled a 3 and a 3, you have to draw a 3x3 square on your player sheet and choose something within that 3x3 square to tick off. So sometimes it benefits you to go for a certain strategy if you're running the high-sized grids, and sometimes it's going to benefit you to tick off other things if you say roll a 1x1, so you have a very precise square that you can tick off. And I like the way as the game progresses, the grid gets, or your player sheet gets squeezed down, and you have to determine when you're going to back out of the round and think, you know what, I'm worried there's going to be, say, a 3x3 grid here. I've only got a 2x2 available, so therefore I'm going to stop playing and call it quits now. Whereas if you take that risk and continue playing and roll a grid that's too big to fit on your player sheet, then you end up acquiring negative points. This game also has some great variability because it comes with 4 different player sheets, each representing a different season, and there's different scoring categories in each of those sheets. So really like this one. It's very breezy and it's a lot of fun. That is Rustling Leaves at number 4. At number 3, I have Rajas of the Ganges, the Dice Charmers. So this is the roll and write version of the Euro strategy game, Rajas of the Ganges. And I like the way that the concept has been adapted for the roll and write genre, and I prefer this one way more than the original board game, which is quite a surprise. So in this one, you are trying to create a network of roads coming out from the central temple, cross buildings as you go. As you cross these different buildings, you get points, but you can invest in other different categories to give you more points when you cross those buildings. You are getting points by reaching the extremities of your player board. You are going down a river and ticking off different things as you go. You're buying and selling resources. It really does have a lot of different Euro tropes here in a very concise and compact little game. And I love the scoring mechanism in this game, as you have 2 different types of points you're collecting. You've got your standard coins and you have your kind of prestige points as well. And much like the popular game Ark Nova uses, and it actually stole from the original Rajas of the Ganges, you are trying to race to get those 2 tracks to connect with each other or surpass each other, and the first player to do that will be the winner. Another game with loads of combos here. It's actually really fun to play, a very satisfying little game. That is Rajas of the Ganges, the Dice Charmers. At number 2, I have Get On Board. So in this game, you are building a bus route by picking up passengers and dropping them off at their desired locations. But I love the way this game is played on a communal board. So there's lots of player interaction in this one, as if you ever share a road with another player, you end up acquiring these congestion points, which will essentially be negative points at the end of the game. So I like the way that, if you had a plan A, somebody's gone there and kind of exhausted all those roads, you might think, you know what, let's do something else, go over here where those roads have not been used yet. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to pick up these people, drop them off to where they want to go. They all score in slightly different ways. I like the way that you are rewarded for picking up a bunch of the same customer first and then going to the location and getting bigger multipliers rather than doing simply one at a time. The game is quite restrictive because you do have very limited options on how you can move, and choosing to mitigate that is going to end up acquiring you more negative points. So you've got to know when to use those kind of mitigation tools. But it's a very nice game, certainly has a certain charm to it, and it's very clever. So that is Get On Board at number 2. And finally, at number 1, my favourite roll and write style game is Long Shot, the dice game. So this is a racing and betting style game as you are kind of participating in this horse race and kind of cheering on your favourite horse to win. And all you're going to do in this game is that when these 2 dice are rolled, that's going to show which horses move and can potentially pull other horses along with them. But it's also going to show something you can tick off on your player sheet. It can be used to maybe bet on that certain type of horse, or it can be used to give another horse a boost, so when they move they'll pull your horse along as well. You can buy the horses for yourself and hopefully they finish in the top 3 position. You are trying to tick off these different concessions on this little grid, and if you tick off a whole line or column, you get a really powerful boon. It's just a very engaging game. It's got high energy to it, and it's got that full feel of a big, grandiose racing game, which can acquire or can accommodate up to like 8 players, I think. And the fact it's all boiled down into a simple little roll and write game is so impressive, and I think this is a fantastic design and so much fun to play. So that's it. My favourite roll and write style game of all time, or at least at this point, is Long Shot, the dice game. So there we have it, that concludes the list. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.